I haven't had a chance to talk about the generic Nurgle Sorcerer Lord yet. Out of all the Champions of Chaos generic characters, he is the best, especially for Warriors of Chaos, given he gives them something they didn't have access to before, which is very strong healing. So similar to Festus, I think he will see some use, but he offers some upside that Festus does not, mainly on that he's much tankier and he has a couple of mount options. Today, this replay, courtesy of Coops, he's gone with a Warriors of Chaos build with a Nurgle bent, definitely, with three Nurgle characters and a Chosen of Nurgle as well. We'll look at them in just a minute. But, you know, Warriors with great weapons, got a front line of Marauders, some Marauder Horsemasters as well against the proud Dawi of Thorek Ironbrow. Got some Ekrund Miners, regular Miners up front, Longbeards, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, more Dwarf Warriors in the second line, some Thunderers, Rangers, 2 Slayers in the back. We've got 3 Rangers. And that's pretty much it. Is there an engineer there as well? But anyway, let's get back to it as the Nurgle forces advance. So, yeah, Nurgle Sorcerer Lord. Of course, he has the War Shrine mount, which gives him just an AoE passive heal. Also gives him like 13k HP. It's pretty insane. But as it is right now, he still has his own self-heal, this Crown of Everlasting Conquest. So he will sustain through damage pretty well. Of course, he's got Fleshy Abundance. Stream of Corruption also has Filth Mace, can cause terror on demand, and gives the Corroded Armor debuff, which will obviously be very nice against the Dwarfs, especially when supporting these guys right here, the Chosen of Nurgle. Let's just quickly get a look at them. Some other people didn't like their skin, but I personally love the like black and rust color scheme that these guys have, and I think their helmets are also maybe my favorite. I don't know. I flip back and forth so much, to be honest. But we're missing the fun part as the blasting charges come in and wreck these Marauders. The Dwarfs going to countercharge here with the Longbeards. Proud Dawi straight into the Marauders. Interesting green color scheme here. I think this is the Fecondites, right? Makes sense then with the Nurgle kind of bent on the Warriors build here. Sorcerer Lord gets hit by something that lights him on fire. I have no idea what's actually doing damage to him there, but anyway, the Warriors, Marauders specifically, are going to suffer pretty badly in this initial engagement, which is not too surprising. They are here somewhat to just absorb the damage, but Marauders with great weapons get in here. Rune of Doom popped for the Dwarfs, so they're going to get a nice power spike across the map. More blasting charges coming in and doing basically nothing to the Chosen of Nurgle. That is very interesting to see there. I mean, blasting charges, the Ekrund's Miners blasting charges even have a little bit of armor-piercing explosive value, but definitely not enough to matter against the 120 armor of the Nurgle Chosen. Poison attacks on them as well, so as they get into combat, they're going to start to just drag the units, Dwarf units down to their speed. They also have additional HP, and yeah, they got a Fleshy Abundance there, just straight up to help them stay topped up as they're getting focus fired by all these Dwarfen missiles. So nice use of the Nurgle abilities there. Let's get in close and watch as the heroes of Nurgle, aspiring champions of Nurgle here, with some of the coolest axes I've ever seen. They're going to come in and start to cleave through this Dwarf infantry, and look at how much bigger they are than them, man. That is significant difference in size. Oof, brutal attacks there. Those heavy axe attacks actually have pretty good splash damage. If we take a look at the Nurgle champs stats, 450 weapon damage with 340 armor piercing, 59 melee defense, 60 attacks. Certainly those attack defense stats are good enough that they can cut through the low-tier Dwarf units with relative ease. The Ekrund's Miners also getting ground down by the Chosen there. Some nice flanking fire, though, from the Thunderers. Does a pretty decent job. Let's see. The Chosen of Nurgle don't have Cloud of Flies, which I kind of half expected them to have on release, but I guess it kind of makes sense why they wouldn't. Marauder Horsemasters also coming in here with a nice flank attack. They're going to distract quite a bit of units, pull those Slayers away. Not that the Slayers would be able to do a ton against this core of Nurgle characters anyway, but across the battlefield, we're getting some Marauders starting to come back from route. These Warriors with great weapons kind of overchasing a little bit, but still, you know, removing those Warriors of Dragonfire Pass completely from the equation. Get some more cinematics of just Marauders, Dwarf Warriors fighting. Yes, classic Tower of Hoeth map. Doesn't really make sense for these two factions to be fighting here, but let's ignore that for now. Nice stream of corruption there in the background. The Nurgle Warriors here I say Nurgle Warriors, they're just regular Chaos Warriors, but the Nurgle Champs, I mean, all these great weapons and the heavy armor, is a lot for the Dwarfs to deal with, mainly because this Dwarf build has a very distinct lack of armor-piercing damage. I mean, besides the Thunderers, they really didn't have any AP at all. Technically, the Miners do have a bit of AP, and I suppose if you get like 3 or 4 Miners in a surround on those Chosen of Nurgle and pop Rune of Doom, they might get something done. Speaking of Rune of Doom, it's now popped again. Slayers get a nice power spike there, and a lot of the Nurgle support units are getting pretty low, but even these Warriors with Grey Weapons have kind of shown that the lack of armor-piercing damage from Dwarfs has been significant. I don't know, I mean, I understand taking the Shielded Warriors, Dwarf Warriors just for the cost, but I might switch to all Great Weapons here in this matchup. I don't know, the Marauder Horsemen I feel like are not threatening enough necessarily to warrant the missile block chance, and although the higher melee defense of the Dwarf Warriors is nice, I believe, we'll have to check, but I believe the Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons also have higher charge bonus, so you can countercharge better when they do get melee attack buffs from Thorek, which they should do. They will trade better into Chaos units, but it's tough. You know, Dwarfs just taking a straight melee fight against Warriors of Chaos previously was tricky. Nowadays, I think it's just straight up suicidal. So maybe you actually switch to some flying shooting units and take a Gyro Bomber here. The Skyhammer is famously strong at sniping foot single entities. If you can get close to them where the scatter shot lands all of its hits, it will mow down these Nurgle characters relatively quickly. I mean, they are pretty tanky with the healing and everything. It's tough to say. I'd have to try it out for myself and see, but certainly it gives you some form of DPS, because right now it's just a little bit lacking on these heavy units. You can see these Chosen Nurgle. I mean, I say that. They actually have gotten heal capped, and I guess the Dwarfs have been focusing them significantly with all their armor-piercing missiles that have been able to keep shooting. There are some Thunderers still shooting, and Engineers also probably been popping shots into them that I haven't been paying attention to. But just in general, Koops is in a nice position. Initially, things seemed pretty rough, but these Marauder Horsemen kind of chasing routing units is a great play. The regular Marauders are also fast enough to chase Dwarven Infantry off, so totally fine there. Meanwhile, Thorek gets matched up against the Warriors with Grey Weapons and then the 2 Nurgle Champions, which is not a great situation for him to be in at all, quite obviously. This is very quickly going to lead to the demise of the Dwarfen army if they lose out on their leadership here, despite their own high leadership. But Stream of Corruption, a little bit misplaced. You could probably swing that back and get it over, but at this point, it doesn't really matter that much. Everything unbreakable is going to hit army losses, and there you go. So a nice victory for the Warriors of Nurgle. They didn't even have to resort to bringing chariots, which, you know, arguably, it's tough to say. These 2 Exalted Heroes of Nurgle can take chariot mounts, which are pretty decent in my experience against the Dwarfs. But there's also an argument to be made of just grinding through their face with, you know, a Chosen to act as kind of a backbone. And then, yeah, the Warriors with Grey Weapons, again, relatively unscathed. Just the non-armored units all took a pretty big beating. It's quite clear. But I don't know. I guess this Dwarf player was just not expecting that much armor, which seems a little bit strange against Warriors. Maybe he was expecting his AP units to be able to stay safer for longer and do more work, but I mean, both the Thunderers basically paid for themselves, and it just wasn't enough. Even the Rangers did an okay job, but you know, the Trollhammer Torpedoes I think are a good overall DPS option up close. Although this specific build, they wouldn't have had any ideal targets, they still could drop some bombs on these Nurgle characters, potentially do some damage to them. Like I said, the Skyhammer or just even a regular Gyro Bomber, the missile DPS is huge if you can land all the scatter shots. So if we come in here and take a look at the Dwarfs, you've got, yeah, the regular Gyro Bomber for 1150 is really not a lot of spend to allocate for a unit that could potentially have a huge effect on the actual battle. Skyhammer, likewise, the bombs, I mean, they do pretty good armor-piercing explosive damage, so you could 100% use these bombs to good effect. It's a little bit trickier with the Skyhammer to aim them, but the regular Gyro Bomber, yeah, explosive damage doesn't actually have direct range damage. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Very interesting. I'll learn something new today. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.